हेलो नमस्कार एंड वेलकम टू टॉकिंग पॉइंट ब्लैंक नाउ आज हम बात करेंगे इजराइल एंड ईरान वॉर की. आई हैव रिसीव्ड अ लॉट ऑफ मैसेजेस वेयर पीपल हैव आस्क्ड मी सम क्वेश्चंस एंड आई विल ट्राई टू आंसर देम एंड सी वेयर दिस इज हेडेड आल्सो. मिलिटरली मैंने और अभिजीत ने अभी 2 दिन पहले बात की थी इस पे, डिस्कशन किया था डिटेल्ड, और उस पर वो जो है वो आप देख सकते हैं. इट्स ऑलरेडी ऑन द चैनल, इट इज़ रिलीज देयर, बट देर आर फ्यू थिंग्स आई थिंक विच नीड टू बी डिस्कस्ड अबाउट दिस. मिलिटरली अगर हम बात करेंगे तो दिस वॉर इज़ अ लॉन्ग ड्रॉन वॉर, इट सीम्स लाइक दैट. जो ईरान का जो इसराइल का एक इनिशियल assessment tha ki they will be heavily bombarding and taking out the capacity and the capability of the Iranians. That has somewhat not really worked, because despite them taking out the complete top brass of the Iranian military, they have not been able to stop Iran from retaliatory strikes. दूसरा ये है कि अगर हम देखें कि उनके जो न्यूक्लियर स्ट्राइक्स पे भी, जो न्यूक्लियर फैसिलिटीज़ पे भी स्ट्राइक्स हुई हैं, that have not been really successful. The reason is very simple, because Israel doesn't really have the technological armament or the capacity and the capability to take down those nuclear sites in entirety. They need American help there. Now, Iranian retaliations have been there, and yesterday also we saw that a hospital was bombed in Israel. So Iranian ballistic missile launches जो हैं वो भी रुक नहीं रहे हैं, and the casualty figures were actually high yesterday. About 271 people were injured in Israel yesterday. So in total अभी तक in these skirmishes, at least 400 plus Israeli people have been injured, or a dozen killed as well. So as the war progresses, the casualties will progress. Now, what Wall Street Journal is also reporting, and many American analysts are saying, is that the Israelis are running out of the anti-ballistic missile defenses as well. The THAAD or the Patriot or their Iron Dome missiles, they're running out of it. Iran has more missiles than what Israel has to protect itself from launches of those missiles. So the efficiency of Israeli interception has also gone down in last 3 to 4 days, I would say. From 90% it has gone down to 60%, and that is the reason. That is solely because they are running low on their supplies. And mind you that what is happening is the Iranians have not even come down to their tier 1 missiles. They have not even used them. So that tells you how dangerous this war is and how long drawn it can be. Now Donald Trump is completely in favor of entering the war, and this is what I want to talk about, I think, in this video a bit elaborately. See, jahan tak America ka sawal hai, where the Americans are concerned, Trump has made it very clear that he will be backing Israel and entering the war. But what does US entering a war directly with Iran mean? I think that is something we really need to look at, and also what's its impact on India is. Now we know that US has its bases all over Middle East. At the present, the estimate is about 45,000 to 50,000 US troops, which are stationed in Middle East. Whether we talk about Jordan, we talk about Oman, we talk about Kuwait, we talk about Bahrain, we talk about Saudi Arabia. Talk about any country in the Middle East, and the US presence is there. Now, if the US presence is there, and if US goes ahead and directly attacks Iran or Iranian nuclear facility, as is being said, ki Diego Garcia say B-2 Spirit bombers and B-52 bombers they will be carrying the high ordnance mother of all bombs, which is known as, to destroy Iranian nuclear facilities. So then basically Americans are going to enter the war. And if the Americans enter the war directly, what is going to happen? What is going to happen is Iran is going to retaliate. Now, Iran for now is only retaliating within Israel. Iran has not even gone ahead, because if you see, the Israeli air superiority over Iran has been complete, but that has only been achieved because they have been using the airspace of Jordan. They have been using the airspace of Iraq. They have airspace access to all Middle East countries at the moment, and that is why they have been able to reach Iran. But then if America goes ahead and joins this war, then if Iranians open up to other places, it's going to be nightmarish. Now, why is it going to be nightmarish? Is because One, the Iraq will get involved because Iranians already have a substantial, I would say, uh, assets in Iraq. Hamad al-Shabab is an organization. Hamad al-Shabab के नाम से है. It's something like Hezbollah or Hamas. It's a guerrilla organization. They might get activated in in Iraq, and they might start attacking American bases. So then Iraq is going to go again through a turmoil, which the Iraqis really don't want. Another war on their soil, and that to a proxy war between the Iranians and the Americans. So Iraq is going to get involved immediately. Not only Iraq, then you have this spreading to Syria. You have it spread even to Jordan. It can spread. But the point is, which is more dangerous, is that if the Americans start using the Gulf bases, which they are going to use, even the Pakistani bases, and I'll talk about what can happen with Pakistan also, the Iranians will find the Gulf countries as legitimate target, and that is a big worry. They can use their ballistic missiles on Oman. They can do it on Kuwait. They can do it on Qatar. They can do it on Saudi Arabia. They can do it on UAE. And once these targets are hit, it is going to be a nightmare in Middle East. Now, what does this entail? Also, you have to understand that 20% of the global oil which flows, which is transported around the world, is transported through Strait of Hormuz. Now, that becomes very, very important, and the Iranians can actually mine it. The Iranians can block it for some time. That will be sending a huge energy crisis globally, will trigger a huge energy crisis. Apart from that, so if we go back to Middle East now, if Iranians are able to hit or take this war into a bigger platform, onto a bigger theater of war by involving the Gulf countries, whether one or two, then what options do Americans have? The Americans have, and the Israelis and the Omanis or the Qataris or the Middle East countries will have to join in and jointly fight Iran. Now, that is very, very nightmarish because that is not a US-Israeli fight. Then you have the Sunni Islamists fighting the only Shia Islamist state in the world. And this is going to become a far more bigger conflict, which will be affecting every country where Shias and Sunnis are living in together, including India. So that is one repercussion, a possible repercussion of this war. Second thing is, as I talked about energy crisis, you also have to realize that, about 15 to 20% of the Chinese oil supply, and this is what a lot of Americans are talking about, is that Trump wants to destroy and, make a change in Iran, is because he wants to squeeze the oil supply of China. And Iran provides about 15 to 20% of crude oil to China. So in that case, the Chinese are watching this very closely. Now, we have seen that the Chinese transport planes have been flying into and out of Tehran. So that means they are supplying some kind of weapons to the Iranians. China is not going to watch very closely or not going to turn a silent eye to the development of what is happening in the Middle East, because for them, Iran is a very important partner. So you'll have to factor that in as well. We will have to see how China responds to it as well. Not only China, how Russians are going to respond. There was a news on social media where it was very clearly said that Putin has basically rejected any help for the Iranians. And the calculation was made on because Putin himself is so embroiled in Ukraine that he doesn't have the capacity or the capability to help the Iranians. Honestly, I'm going to take that with a pinch of salt. If you read Art of War, deception is number one. And I would put that kind of a news into the deception mode. I will have my fingers crossed till we don't see what happens in case this war actually, pans out on a bigger theater. Now, talking about Strait of Hormuz, talking about energy, talking about China. The biggest problem is that if the Gulf countries get involved, then India is also into trouble, because about 9 million Indians are, stationed in Gulf countries. They work in Gulf countries. They are in GCC countries, earning there. You have remittances coming into billions of dollars from the Gulf countries into India. And not only that, Indian supply of about 40 to 45% comes from the GCC countries plus Iraq. So the oil supplies can be hit, the oil routes can be hit, and it is going to be nightmarish for us as well. Not to, discount the fact that then you have internal pressures. If the Shia and the Sunni conflict embroils globally, it will automatically have an effect in India as well. Now, apart from that, what is more important is to understand that, there is a lot of talk about taking Khomeini out. Now, you might take Ayatollah Khomeini out. The Americans might be thinking how to limit this war and, not let it spread out. And the one possible action they're talking about is regime change. And they think by taking Ayatollah Khomeini out, the regime change in Iran will happen. I think that's a gross miscalculation, because what is going to happen is the moment you take Khomeini out, some other mullah is going to come and sit on his place. That is how it is going to go, because given the internal dynamics of Iran right now and the way Iranians are fighting the Western world, it is completely an Islam versus the other fight at the moment. And no Iranian would want basically a democratic or a Pahlavi, the guy sitting in US, an absolute joker, I would call him, sitting in US giving sermons to Iranians how time for change has come. I don't think Iranians are going to take it. I don't think Iranians are going to buy it. So taking out Khomeini is just going to replace Khomeini with some other, Iranian Shia mullah, a cleric who will come on Khomeini's place, and this war will continue. The only way you can dismantle Khomeini is if you go via you do an Iraq in Iran, which means you will have to do a land invasion of Iran. For that, you will have to go in through Syria. For that, you will have to use Iraq as your main frontier. Now, does the US really want to get into the Middle East? Does Trump really wants to get into a land war into Iraq, right into Iran, and try to fight Iranian forces, and then rile up all the Islamic forces, which will be licking their, literally lips, asking the Americans to come down into Middle East so they can be engaged. Now, yes, the Jolani might not be, directly participating. The Haqqanis might not directly participate, but they would love to use proxies to basically trap America in the Middle East. You don't want Americans, I don't think, are realizing that Middle East is going to get far worse for them, is going to become another Afghanistan for them for next 20 years if they try to get into Iran, because then Iran is not a pushover. Iran does have its geopolitical heft with the Russians and the Chinese as well. It is not going to be that easy. So are Israelis thinking that by containing or having asymmetrical warfare in the Middle East in next 10 to 15 to 20 years is going to suit them? I really don't think so, because the danger with Khomeini going is that you're going to take only Shia state, which is a counterbalance to the Sunni extremism in the Middle East, in completely out of equation. The moment you take Khomeini out, it's not only the Saudis who will come into play. It will be Turkey who will come into play. It will be Pakistan who will come into play. It will be Qatar who will come into play. And the moment these, and with Erdogan, what is going to happen? The moment these Sunni, extremists are able to come into Iran or are able to come on the boundaries of Iran, things are going to get very, very bad in the Muslim world. Now, that is a major risk which has to be calculated and which has to be thought about. So that is another repercussion, and a major repercussion which can happen. And if the Israelis think that by taking Khomeini out, they are going to get peace and they're going to manage Jolani or Haqqanis, they are extremely mistaken, because what will surface in next 5 to 7 years will look Hamas as a child play. That is how dangerous it can get for them. And then what is going to happen? Are they going to fight the Turkish? Are they going to go to war with the Turkish at that time? I don't think this is going to end. An endless war continuing over decades and decades and decades is not a solution. Now, Trump has given a hint yesterday, saying that, he has 2 weeks to think. He may or he may not, or, he's thinking about dialogue as well. The Iranians have made it very, very clear yesterday in a statement saying that unless Israel doesn't stop the hostilities, they will not be talking to anyone, whether it is US or Israel, on the issue of the nuclear weapons. But at the same time, they have also made it very, very clear that the US will be the last country they would be engaging into a dialogue with. And, it has a precedence, because if you look at the dialogue which was happening on the Iranian nuclear deal, in 2018, it was Donald Trump who basically, I would say, completely finished that deal which Obama had put into place. And he was the one who actually triggered this kind of a hostility from the Iranians in the region by completely, he completely put that deal on the shelf in the dustbin. So what kind of new negotiation Trump is now looking for, since he's the one who shelved the earlier, negotiation, is to be seen. At the same time, the Iranians, when they say that US is the last country they want to speak about, then the expectation is that they will be looking at a middle country which will be favorable to them as well. So who fills that role? Does the European countries fill that role? Is France a country which would be, interested in meddling a peace deal between the Americans, Israelis, and Iranians? Or is it going to be the Chinese and the Russians? That is still yet to be seen. The Europeans are not very enthusiastic about this war. They're very, very cautious about it because they know once this war in Middle East starts or it pans out, Europe is going to burn as well. Europe is next on the target. So I think the Europeans are very, very clear about it. So this situation is not very good. It is very murky. And I think as time progresses, next 2 weeks are going to be extremely crucial and extremely critical of what is happening in the Middle East. And I will be bringing out more of this or more of updates and more of analysis on how this war is panning out and how it is going to go. But taking out, as I said, taking out Ayatollah, I don't think it is going to get a democratic government in Iran. It is going to create more havoc in the region. Mullah might most probably replace him. That is how I see it. If it doesn't happen, the only option they have to physically get the clerics out of Iran is by doing a land invasion, which I said is basically doing an Iraq in Iran. That has huge risks and it is not going to be a pushover. It is going to trigger a wider conflict. So let's hope that, the next 2 weeks, some via media, some peace talks come forward and we see some lull in fighting in the Middle East, because Middle East is going to affect the entire West Asia. West Asia is going to affect South Asia and it is going to affect as well. So we'll be watching these developments very, very closely and I'll be bringing them out to you in my next update. Till then, thank you. If you like this content, kindly share it with your friends and family. Help me grow this channel. You can also contribute by becoming members, by using super thanks, super chats, and please leave me questions if you have any, or if there is any particular topic you would like me to address in my solo program. I would be very happy to do that for you. Leave it in the comments what you think about this video. Till next time, Jai Hind, Jai Bharat, Namaskar.